Archaeology is finally in Minecraft 1.20, almost 3 years since its announcement, so find out everything about the amazing new Minecraft archaeology system, the items you get from it, and the trail ruin structure in this guide. The entire archaeology system in Minecraft is based on one item, that is the brand new brush. Now the brush is made with a stick, a copper ingot, and a feather. It's nice to have a new use for the copper ingot, and this incredibly cheap recipe means that archaeology is unlocked to the player basically on the first day. So with this brush item, we can then sometimes find suspicious sand and suspicious gravel, which is located across a bunch of different structures in the game, one of them new and some of them old. Basically, you right click on this, and an object will eventually become appearing out of the block. So for instance, on the edge right here, you could see a block started to be uncovered, then eventually it came back in, but we're doing this by simply right clicking on here or selecting it, and you can notice we now have this wheat item. Now a bit of the brush's durability was used. You can notice the brush item does have 64 durability, and of course that would beg the question, are there any enchantments for the brush? Well, let's take a look at some of the enchantments that could be on here and see if we can put them on. Unbreaking 3 can be applied to the brush, as can mending, as of course those things just affect its durability, just like how you could enchant, let's say, a flint and steel. Now what about efficiency? Could we potentially more efficiently get the objects out of those suspicious blocks? No, unfortunately efficiency cannot be added to the brush. What about looting or mending to get ourselves more treasure out of there? No, for now that's also not possible, so you can only enchant this with Unbreaking 3 and Mending, although of course the Curse of Vanishing enchantment could also be applied to this. Now the brush itself can be used to brush any single block or item in the game. The actual visual of doing this is animated with the brush moving back and forth, so it definitely does look like we're actually cleaning the blocks around here. Now suspicious gravel and sand are not very common, even within the structures where they generate, and so finding these blocks is probably the most difficult part of the archaeology system. As for example in this structure here too, we're digging out a ton of this sand and a ton of this gravel and we're not really seeing anything. For now there is no suspicious dirt, there's no suspicious coarse dirt or any other items. Now these do have different things that appear inside them. For instance, if we brush off this specific suspicious sand, we will get an oak hanging sign. Seems like this hanging sign has a really important message on it that you should subscribe to my channel so that you never miss Minecraft facts, tips, tutorials, guides, and more. And of course the best way of doing that is to also enable notifications so that you never miss my uploads in the future. Here is standard sand and gravel, here is suspicious sand and suspicious gravel. The main difference is there's some darker patches on the suspicious sand, and the suspicious gravel has some darker patches to it as well, but overall these are fairly similar blocks, and you can always tell the difference, because whatever side that you start brushing it on, that's the side that the item is going to start emerging from out of it. But of course the way of actually finding these blocks is going to the structures where they generate, because you won't just find these on the beach. Now this is chunkbase.com, which already has the ability to look at 1.20 structures, and basically there are 5 structures in the game that have archaeology at them. The first one is the trail ruins. This is a brand new structure that we did look at a little bit at the beginning of this video. That's more or less a buried section of maybe a village. I'll get into more on exactly where these generate in a minute, but that's of course the main archaeology structure. However, they're also found at some other existing structures. There is suspicious sand at the desert temples, and also the desert wells, which on this seed finder are marked out with a bucket, do also have suspicious sand at them. The final 2 archaeology structures are the warm ocean ruin as well as the cold ocean ruin. And let's take a look at these 5 archaeology structures in game. The first archaeology structure we're going to take a look at is the desert wells. And these are fairly uncommon, but this structure has been in the game for a very, very long time. If you're wondering where the suspicious sand is in this structure, it's actually at the very bottom of the well here. A couple of these blocks at the bottom here are suspicious. So not this one at the middle, but you can notice this one over here is a suspicious sand block. And if we go on here with our brush a little bit, we've actually just uncovered an emerald. Be sure to break all the sand you see in here once you've checked it to be suspicious or not. As you can notice under here, we have another sand block under here that we just brushed up and got a suspicious stew out of that suspicious sand. Something tells me this stew is very suspicious if we got it out of a desert well, but there's no point of excavating the whole area around this, as there's just going to be a couple suspicious sand at the bottom here. Now, not all suspicious sand and gravel were made equal, because the types of things you get in suspicious sand and gravel varies completely on what structure it is. So what types of things do you get in the desert well structure? Well, to start off with, there are two unique pottery shards that can be found at the desert well. As an example, we just found one of them here. Also, if you want to know more about pottery shards, I will discuss those a bit more in a separate pottery guide. But anyway, as well as two unique pottery shards, you can also find bricks, emeralds, sticks, and suspicious stew at the desert well. I think the idea would be these would be items that wandering travelers would have around here, maybe even things that ancient wandering traders might have left at these desert wells, where they were getting water for their llamas thousands of years ago. It's fun to imagine the lore behind these, but anyway, on to the next archaeology structure, which is also in the ancient desert, which I love because of course it leans into this whole theme of Egyptology and archaeology. That is the desert temple. And also something important I would say is when conducting any archaeology in Minecraft, as well as of course the very important brush, I'd also suggest having a shovel with you, some torches to light up any areas you've dug out, and maybe a chest to put the items you've found. But anyway, where is the suspicious sand inside of the desert temple? Well, it's so cool because the desert temple has actually been changed in Minecraft 1.20. Now yes, all of it generates how it used to, but there's an additional feature to it, as well as of course the treasure at the base of it. If you look around here, you might notice some random areas where the sandstone is instead sand blocks. And if we break those sand blocks with our shovel, and thankfully the suspicious sand is not instantly broken, so we can fairly safely do this, here's a secret room over here that we can excavate. The best way to do this without breaking the suspicious sand is to go layer to layer, from the top to the bottom, as if a suspicious sand falls and it'll break. But anyway, let's start brushing the suspicious sand and seeing what we find. So at the desert temple, there are 4 unique pottery shards that are only found at this structure, but as well as that we can also find a really great treasure item, which we're digging out right now. That is the diamond, and obviously it's super amazing to be able to just dig out diamonds from sand, and even the items that we get to do this with, you know, just copper and string and a feather, are pretty easy to get, so you could get even your first diamonds just from archaeology. And obviously continuing to uncover the rest of this, we can also find items like TNT, and going along that explosive vein, there is gunpowder that can be found. Of course, this sort of leans into the idea of the TNT that's at the trap of the bottom of this structure, and so of course we have some explosive blocks in here to show a very ancient and collapsed area that might used to have in it, of course, the TNT. But anyway, if we dig out this entire area down here, you can notice we've just uncovered the secondary room, and even gotten a decent amount of pottery shards and other treasures from it. The second room looks very similar to the main room's area here, and of course in the main room, if you break this blue terracotta in the center, at the bottom of that we have the TNT trap. However, over here if you break this block, there is never a TNT trap below it, just being sandstone or whatever else generated underneath here. So although this is a lookalike to the rest of the structure, it is certainly not a repeat of this lower area, and there is no suspicious sand that generates under here. Alright, now on to the next archaeological site, that is the cold ocean ruins. The trick to finding the cold ocean ruins is to go around the large oceans that you find in your world that are of the cold biome varieties, and then drink a potion of water breathing as well as a potion of night vision. The water breathing will enable you to see the structures underwater, which are actually really common, and of course the water breathing will enable you to jump into the water and start exploring them. Now, there are sort of 3 types of ocean ruins. The first one is just the individual small ruins that you sometimes find. The second one is the large ruins that also generate but much rarer, and the third one is the combination of the large and small ruins. Now it seems to me that the large ruins tend to have a lot less suspicious blocks than the small ruins do, but either way, whenever you find this structure, let's take a look at what's located inside of these gravel blocks. Well, inside the cold ocean ruins, we have 4 unique pottery shards. That's right, the same amount of unique pottery shards as are found in, let's say, the desert temple. But as well as that, there's a bunch of other things we can find as well. So for example, one of those things is an emerald, which is what we just picked up. But there's even wheat that can be found here, which I'm afraid the condition of it is probably pretty moldy. You can also find iron axes, as well as gold nuggets inside of the suspicious gravel in the cold ocean ruins. And finally, the wooden hoe, as well as coal can be found here also. Just be careful when exploring any of the ocean ruins, because of course there are the dangers here of drowns, trident rounds, drowning, and even dying on magma blocks like what these poor fishes just found out. And although you might occasionally see sand in this, it is only suspicious gravel that generates inside of the cold ocean ruins. There is no suspicious sand in this. However, if you do want to find suspicious sand underwater, we have to go off exploring again in our pink boat to the next archaeological structure. Just like with the cold ocean ruins, when exploring the warm ocean ruins, night vision as well as water breathing are incredibly useful. And of course, these only generate inside of the warm ocean biomes. Now also, just like the cold ocean ruins, there's the large ocean ruin as well as small ocean ruin types, with the suspicious sands seeming to be more frequent at the small ocean ruins. However, what we find here is completely different. For starters, there is only suspicious sand here, there is no suspicious gravel. And instead of 4 unique pottery shards, there are only 3 unique pottery shards to be found. However, there are some similarities in what you can find. So for example, we can still find the iron axes here. Additionally, coal, just like the other structure, can be found here. Emeralds can be dug up, wheat can, wooden hose, gold nuggets. But there is one major difference here. This is what's going to probably take the warm ocean ruin from an almost forgotten and basically completely not used structure in the game to one that almost every single player will be dying to get their hands on. And that is for one very specific loot item that can be found fairly rarely across this structure. That item is the sniffer egg. Now I'm going to have an entire separate video all about sniffers and what they do, but the one thing that's very important to know about the sniffer egg is that this amazing block is only found inside of the warm ocean ruins. So when you're doing your archaeology, be sure to do a lot of digging around the warm ocean ruins to sometimes get that incredibly rare and incredibly massive ancient dinosaur egg. But let's move on from these sort of aquatic structures and take a look at the brand new trail ruins, a very new structure that has a ton of different things that can be found at it. Minecraft world is quite large and contains a ton of biomes, so obviously it's really important to know where do you actually find the trail ruins. Well, I'll tell you, they only spawn in certain biomes, and those are basically old growth forests. So that could be a old growth birch forest, basically the birch forest with the very tall trees. That could also be an old growth spruce forest, also known as a mega taiga, basically the taiga that has the massive trees in it. As well as that, you can find the trail ruins across the standard taiga biome, and additionally the snowy taiga biome if you're in a cold biome area, and finally the jungle. Now how do you actually know if you found a trail ruin? Well, this is what they look like. You're basically going to have a small bit of them that peek out from the top of the grass. It is comprised of terracotta, sand, gravel, dirt, and coarse dirt. There can also be some glazed terracotta, but overall you're going to find something similar to this. Another thing that you might see next to this is some strange indentations or markings in the dirt. This is basically just because of how these generate. There's basically a bit of sinking down in the dirt around here to sort of represent there's something underneath there. Now once you've found this bit of the structure, we're going to want to set up an archaeology camp because this is a large structure. To do this, there are some important items you're going to need. To start off, you're going to want to craft a large number of brushes made with feathers, copper ingots, and sticks of course. You're also going to want some ladders, a pickaxe, as well as a shovel, some chests to put your items in, some torches, and some scaffolding or ladders. Now why scaffolding or ladders? Well, basically because with this part of the structure it initially starts by going downwards very quickly. You're going to want to start off by digging all the random dirt blocks, gravel blocks, and sand blocks you see, but when you actually do find a piece of suspicious sand or gravel, be sure to dig that out first. And it looks like we found a really good treasure in here, which is the Wayfinder armor trim. Now there's a lot of different types of items you can find at the suspicious sand and gravel inside of this, but one of the biggest facts is that there's 4 new armor trim smithing templates here, as well as that inside of the suspicious sand and gravel we can find 7 unique pottery shards. There are so many unique pottery shards here, it's insane. Additionally, we can find the random emerald inside of here, as well as the random gold nugget, and be very careful when excavating these not to break any of the suspicious blocks, as it can be pretty easy, and once they're broken, whatever is inside them is gone forever. Now you can also find wheat, wooden hose, clay balls, bricks, clay blocks, and also dye inside of these. So yellow dye, blue dye, light blue dye, even white and orange dye can be found here, as well as red candles, brown candles, green candles, candles and purple candles. There's even glass panes in here, like you saw we just found a blue one. What colors of glass panes can you find? Well, crazy enough, there is magenta, pink, blue, light blue, red, yellow, as well as purple glass panes. You can even find spruce and oak hanging signs like we did at the beginning of the video. And there's even more you can find in the trail ruin structure, like coal, as well as wheat and beetroot seeds. We can even find items as random as dead bushes, flower pots, strings, and even leads inside of here. And as you notice right there, we're just digging up a wheat seed. And that is all the items that you can find inside of this. The actual best way of digging out the trail ruin structure is to do it very slowly as well as very carefully, because you do not want to break any suspicious sand or gravel by accident. We're going to take a look at this entire structure being force excavated. Now obviously this is going to look a lot different than it would if you just excavated it normally, but we can still take a good look at what's all here. Alright, there we go. Now this is the entire structure. We can start off by seeing there is this main sort of cobblestone roadway like I was saying. Now I like that they used cobblestone because, for example, in ancient Roman roads there's also cobblestone. Of course this entire thing would be filled with suspicious sand and gravel, but that was removed. We have this main building, again with I think the idea being that there was a tall tower in that building. We sort of went from the top of that all the way down to the base level. But you can also notice over here we have this other building which seems to have a basement, as I think the idea is where we're standing right here would have been the old ground level. So for instance from right here we can go down beneath lower into this sort of basement area. All of this again would have been filled with all kinds of suspicious blocks with tons and tons of treasure. We have ladders that are automatically there and just all kinds of interesting things. I think it's cool too because we're seeing here with the mud blocks as well as the glazed terracotta and standard terracotta and even just bricks around here. These are meant to look like old materials that are used to build all of this. So overall a very ugly structure if you obviously have it all be dug out like this, but if you're actually doing it the normal way, which is of course sort of digging out tunnels, you wouldn't of course fully expose this generally. It is an incredibly beautiful structure that could eventually be refurbished into what it probably is meant to represent, which is like an ancient village of a lost civilization. But of course that part of it is the beauty of archaeology and this amazing new system in Minecraft, because it's completely up to you to decide what this ancient structure is. Of course also there's a ton of variants of this is just one of them, but they all do look fairly similar and have basically the same idea to them. Here's a very difficult to spot piece of a trail ruin structure, and we're also going to excavate this part of it out so that we can take a look at this and kind of see the variance between these different types. Now if we dig all of this out, you can see, like I was saying, it is in some senses very similar to the other trail ruins, but in some senses also completely different. The actual shape of it is basically identical, where we just have this main structure, which is a tall tower that our entrance is from. It has two structures off of the side of that, and there is this main sort of stone and cobblestone road going through this, but on the side we have some different structures that can generate. So for example, this one right here is totally from a village. It's really cool to see. We have a furnace, a blast furnace, a stone cutter, a cauldron, a smithing table, tons of purplish blocks like this purple glazed terracotta, and even these bluish purple blue terracotta, and these strange sort of structures on the side here with the creeper face and the stone, maybe representing some sort of a strange sign. But every single type of trail ruin structure has the same type of loot in it. All the actual blocks that make it up are different, and it's pretty cool the amazing things that can be found through here. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that Minecraft archaeology guide and this amazing new system and structure in the game. If you did, make sure to excavate the like button, subscribe to see more content like this, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye!